Welcome back. Scissors and Scrubs.
Yep.
Presidential episode.
Oh.
Bum, bum, ba, bum, bum, ba, bum, bum, bum. Okay, I don't even know if that's the right song.
Yeah.
So what we decided thought might be fun for
Mhm.
President's Day is pick presidents and what illnesses they have and discuss their illnesses. Because we're trying to get back to roots here.
Right.
With our...
We got to speak about medical stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to pretend we're really a medical podcast.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'm kicking it off with... I just found out Laura's childhood obsession. Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Every time. I'm telling you, I had to have done 8 reports on him. I picked him every year.
I'm looking at my favorites. I'm like, I got Eisenhower. She's like, oh my God, I was obsessed with him. I was like, I just burst out laughing. She's like, what are you laughing? I'm like, who's obsessed with Dwight Eisenhower?
Me! I like Ike.
Oh, you do like Ike.
I do like Ike.
Also known as Ike. Ike was born October 14th, 1890. He is our 34th president. He is a general in the army during WW2.
How can you not like him?
Because he's Ike. He had us win the big one. And he also brought highway systems to the United States.
How can you not like him?
The Eisenhower Project.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't know, the highway... So I'm watching the show the other day, and they're talking about...
You know what's funny? We're on the... I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. We're on the highway today, and Sam goes... Oh, never mind. I was like, what? He's like, I was just going to ask you if you were alive before they had highways. I'm like, I swear to God.
Wow.
And then he's like, well, no, but can you imagine what a project that must have been? Who made this up? Who thought of that?
Well, Dwight D. Eisenhower made it up. And not only did he make up the highways, he made them up to be used as runways should we ever suffer an invasion. So every major highway...
Do you see my obsession now?
He can be used as a runway.
Do you see my obsession?
Well, I learned that when I was watching The Foods That Built America. I'm obsessed with this show. Because it takes you through, like, how Harlan Sanders became Colonel Sanders. How McDonald's became McDonald's. How Coca-Cola came about. How Hershey came about. How Hershey fought with Mars. And how Mars and Hershey... M&M's is the son of the Mars Corporation and the vice president of Hershey's, who got passed over for promotion by... Milton Hershey. Oh. They got together because Mars's son made that candy. He needed the Hershey chocolate. M is for Mars, and the other M is for Muir, which was the...
Oh.
Oh, yeah. So you learn all these little things like OMG. So it's a great show. I loved it. So that's where we're like, yeah, Eisenhower made these highway systems because they're talking about Kentucky Fried Chicken and how Colonel Sanders was kind of like a good for nothing. But then he starts making this chicken in his gas station. Mm-hmm. And it's before the highway system. Mm-hmm. And so he, on this stretch of highway, was known for the chicken. He had a hotel, he had restaurants, and then Eisenhower built these roadways, and they bypass all these small towns, put them out of business. Oh. So he had to find another way. Mm. But I'll leave that for the show. So, all right, back to Ike. So he's a general in the highway. He's most noted for the highway system. And that's where I get my little side note that the highways were built as runways. I loved that piece of information. But little known fact was that Dwight D. Eisenhower suffered from Crohn's disease. Oh. Crohn's disease is an inflammatory bowel disease, and it can cause severe diarrhea and fatigue, weight loss and malnutrition, and it can be both painful and debilitating and lead to life-threatening complications. There is no cure for Crohn's, but therapies can reduce the symptoms. So I'm going to go a little more in-depth about Crohn's right now before I go into how it related to Dwight D. Eisenhower. Okay. So, signs and symptoms of Crohn's disease can range from mild to severe. They usually develop gradually, but sometimes will come on suddenly without warning, and you may also have short periods of time when you have no signs or symptoms at all, also known as remission, kind of like cancer. So when the disease is active, signs and symptoms include diarrhea, fever, fatigue, abdominal pain and cramping, blood in your stool, mouth sores, reduced appetite and weight loss, and pain or drainage near or around the anus due to inflammation from a tunnel into the skin. Oh, you get anal fistulas. Those are gross too. Okay. People with severe Crohn's may also experience inflammation of the skin, eyes, and joints, inflammation of the liver or bile ducts, kidney stones, anemia, or delayed growth or sexual development in children. You will see some people with Crohn's come in, and they're just tiny.
Yeah,
they look very tiny.
They're malnourished.
Yeah. So, causes of Crohn's. There can be several factors, such as hereditary and a malfunctioning immune system likely play a role in its development. You can tell it's an immune deficiency with all these other things that come with it. It's possible that a virus or a bacteria may trigger Crohn's disease. However, scientists have yet to discover such a trigger. When your immune system tries to fight off the invading microorganism, an abnormal immune response can cause the immune system to attack the cells in the digestive tract too. Mm-hmm. It is more common that it is hereditary, and if one person in the family has it, usually other people's have it. What is with the peoples?
I don't
the
know.
peoples.
It's weird.
The peoples. However, most people with Crohn's don't know if they have a family history, or they're not aware of it. Mm-hmm. Risks for Crohn's disease. Ethnicity. Although Crohn's disease can affect any ethnic group, whites have the highest risk, especially people of Eastern European, Jewish descent. However, the incidence of Crohn's disease is increased among Black people who live in North America and the United Kingdom. Family history. You are at higher risk if you have a first-degree relative, such as a parent, sibling, or child with the disease. As many as 1 in 5 people with Crohn's disease has a family member with the disease. Cigarettes. Another thing linked to cigarettes. Cigarette smoking is the most important controllable risk factor for developing Crohn's. Smoking also leads to more severe disease and greater risk of having surgery if you smoke. It's important to stop. Mm-hmm. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications. These include ibuprofen, Advil, Motrin, Aleve. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't even pronounce the other ones. While they do not cause Crohn's disease, they can lead to inflammation of the bowel that makes Crohn's disease worse. So I better go fix this back problem.
Which is weird because it's an anti-inflammatory.
Right, but yet it's inflaming the bowel. Okay, Crohn's disease can lead to one or more of the following complications. Bowel obstructions, ulcers, fistulas, which we've already discussed. I gotta turn this page.
Fistula is like a little tunnel that goes from your bowel out somewhere.
Yeah.
So
you
out
get
of
a
your
fistula
bum,
from
out
your
of your
urinary tract to your bowel.
vagina.
Yeah. It's one hole that doesn't belong connecting to another hole. Anal fistulas, it's a small tear in the anal fissures, excuse me. This is a small tear in the tissue that lines the anus. Mm-hmm. Malnutrition, colon cancer, other health problems. Mm-hmm. Blood clots. Yeah, there you go. So treatment. It can involve medication, surgery, or nutritional supplements. The aim is to control inflammation, correct nutritional problems, and relieve symptoms. The treatment for Crohn's depends on where the inflammation is, how severe it is, the complications you have with it, and your patient's response to previous treatments and recurring symptoms. Some people can have long periods or even years without symptoms, as did Dwight D. Eisenhower. Mm-hmm. You can take anti-inflammatory drugs. You can take corticosteroids. You can take antibiotics, antidiarrheal or fluid replacements. There's biologics you can try. I'm not going to read them because I can't even pronounce the names. But you like Remicade, Humira, and other methotrexate.
All those ones you see on the commercials.
Yep.
That tell you you're going to die of everything else other than the disease.
Right, because once you get on these, they are going to reduce your immune system even more. Yes. And now you're subjected to a million other side effects. Mm-hmm. Many people with Crohn's end up in surgery. Mm-hmm. They remove a part of the intestine, but doing that doesn't cure Crohn's. No. The inflammation will return right next to where you just removed. Mm-hmm. So you wind up piecing the affected area of the gut. So some Crohn's disease patients may require more than one operation during their lives, and in some case, a total colectomy is needed, and they'll take the whole colon and you end up with a bag, which isn't great. But I guess if you're really suffering from all these other problems, that might be blessed.
If you have all these other issues, you can't live your daily life.
Right.
So when you have an ileostomy,
it's easier to get around than having to deal with these.
You can live your daily life without problems.
So in 1956... Ike goes into the hospital. He has a worsening bowel obstruction. He had a history of intermittent bowel problems, but at this time, they don't know about Crohn's. In 1922, after graduating West Point, he had several bouts of abdominal pain and weight loss, and he convinced surgeons it was his appendix, and they removed it. And it wasn't until years later, after it was known he had Crohn's, that his bowel x-rays from the 40s and 50s were looked at, showing that he had had the disease for many years. In the years... just before his death, he suffered many small bowel obstructions and he had to have surgery. This was complicated by he had a horrible heart. Like, his cardiac history was horrible. Like, horrible. So, he's in the hospital. He had surgery. He was getting better. He has, like, major cardiac issues, and he dies on March 28th, 1969, at the age of 79. His autopsy showed that his terminal ileum was characteristic of a relative quiescent... He had Crohn's.
Yeah.
I can't even read quiescent. I don't know. Crohn's. He had Crohn's. It showed, so it wasn't really until after he died that they realized how severe his Crohn's was, and that he was suffering from Crohn's the whole time. And we know, I know people with Crohn's. It's not nice. It's not pretty. Awful. I mean, we work with a woman who has 2 sons with it, and it's. I always think of her, and it's a life-altering disease.
It is a like I think people are like, oh, it's like irritable. It's not. It's a life-altering disease. You can't work for bouts at a time. Like it's.
You may never work again because you have to, and then you're on these steroids. Steroids make you put on weight, and they make your skin tear, and they bring other infections in. So it's not a pretty thing. No, it's definitely not a pretty thing. No. All right, over to Sparkles.
So I have first. I think I'm going to do William Howard Taft.
Big fatty, wasn't
he? He was a big fatty.
Oof.
And the problem he had was sleep apnea.
Ooh. Sounds like my husband.
Oh, no, it sounds like mine. He was the 27th president of the United States. He was a Republican president.
Uh-oh.
And later, after his presidency, he achieved his lifelong dream of becoming the 10th Chief Justice of the United States. That's what he wanted.
After he was president, he was the Chief Justice?
Yes. Isn't that weird?
That's bizarre.
Yeah. So that was his goal the whole time.
That's going backwards.
What's
really president? Like, how do you cap out after presidency?
That's what he didn't really care about the president. He wanted the Chief Justice.
Wow.
Yeah. He was born September 15th, 1857, and died March 8th, 1930.
He was close to my birthday.
So sleep apnea. I got this information from Mayo Clinic. Sleep apnea is a serious sleep disorder in which your breathing stops and starts repeatedly. Sleep apnea is also deadly because your spouse that has to sleep with you will try to kill you.
We'll try to smother you with a pillow.
There are 3 types of sleep apnea: obstructive sleep apnea, central sleep apnea, and complex sleep apnea syndrome. Symptoms of both obstructive and central sleep apneas are loud snoring, like wicked loud snoring.
Not just loud, wicked loud.
Episodes in which you stop breathing. Gasping for air while sleeping, which is also fun to listen to. Waking up with dry mouth from all your gasping.
I'm not gonna lie, there's sometimes when Brian's sleeping that I'm like, I think he's dying. Yeah. And I'm like, and I'll wake him up. He's going. I'm like, you can't feel that you're not breathing? Yeah. Or just no. I'm like, he's dead. He died. And then I think part of me's like, money or him. I always opt for him. Yeah. Just saying.
Headache in the morning. Insomnia, because you're constantly starting and stopping. So waking up, going to sleep, waking up, going to sleep.
You think you've had a good night's sleep, but you haven't.
Yeah. Hypersomnia, which means you have like daytime sleepiness. Difficulty paying attention, because you're so friggin' tired. Irritability, because you're so tired. And a key fact, not everyone with sleep apnea snores. Just the special ones. Just like my husband.
I'm married to.
Oh, God. Obstructive sleep apnea is caused when the muscles in the back of your throat relax. Mike is just so friggin' relaxed that his muscles in his throat just lay like they're dead. Which causes your airway to narrow, obviously, if those muscles are then relaxed as you breathe in, and it lowers your blood oxygen levels. The lowered blood oxygen levels trigger your brain to wake you up from sleep so you can open your airway and take a deep breath. You're awakened so briefly you don't even realize it's happening. These people, like, it's so quick and you breathe and go right back to sleep. They don't even know they're waking up.
But you're constantly being woken up.
You may snort, gasp, or choke. And that can happen 30 times an hour.
An hour?
Yes. Central sleep apnea is less common, but happens when your brain does not signal your breathing muscles.
So you're going to die.
So you make no effort to breathe for a short period of time.
Oh, that's a dangerous one.
Risk factors for obstructive sleep apnea are excess weight, neck circumference. I'm looking at you.
Mike does not have a big fat neck.
Look at Mike's neck!
He does not have a big fat neck.
He has this right here, like under his
wide jaw.
Chin.
She's so flattering to you. It's amazing.
Well, this is why I said, look it, we need something done here, and this will stop the sleep apnea. Narrowed airways, being male, you're 2 to 3 times more likely to have it if you're a male.
Oh my God.
Or males are
2 to 3 more likely to have it.
Being older, family history, use of alcohol, sedatives, or tranquilizers, because that just relaxes
Oh,
everything.
absolutely. So this is the thing. Like, when we first got married, he never snored. Like, I honestly, because I think I would have divorced him immediately. Now he's getting a little older. And it was always if he had been out drinking.
Yeah. He
He would be snoring. I'm like, oh, he's not drinking all the time. Now it's just every fucking night.
Yeah. Awful.
Yeah.
You have the machine?
No, why would he get the machine? He doesn't have the pepper. He doesn't have the pad. He doesn't need it.
Oh, God.
Does he get tired during the day?
Of course, he has to rest his eyes all the time.
Yeah, I don't have to do that.
Yes, it's time. It's time. It's time. Can you just borrow yours?
Yeah, let him try it on. Other risk factors are smoking, nasal congestion, hypertension, congestive heart failure, diabetes, Parkinson's, and other medical conditions.
None of which somebody the size of Taft needed.
No. But I bet he had hypertension, CHF, diabetes.
I'm pretty sure he had all of it.
Risk factors for essential sleep apnea are being older, being male, heart disorders, narcotic pain meds, and strokes.
Oh my goodness.
Complications from
Of
sleep
sleep
apnea.
apnea.
Daytime fatigue, hypertension, and heart problems due to the decrease in your oxygen. SATs, when you have a decrease in your oxygen sats, it raises your blood pressure and strains your cardiovascular system. So you're hurting your heart by
All the
not
time.
correcting this sleep apnea. Brian. Type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, which is hypertension, abnormal cholesterol levels, high blood sugar, and increased waist circumference is linked to a higher risk of heart disease.
And I'm pretty sure Taft's waist was quite a circumference.
Very large
He was
circumference.
a large in charge man.
The complications are with medications and surgery. If you have sleep apnea and you're going to, you have more complications from
They actually
the
make you
anesthesia.
take your CPAP to surgery.
Liver problems and sleep-deprived partners is a
That
complication.
is a big complication.
That's
'cause
a huge complication.
There's a lot of animosity behind that.
Yeah,
a lot of anger.
that's I
That's
think
a big
the
deal. Yeah,
biggest deal.
that's a big deal.
Treatment for sleep apnea, weight loss, exercise, quit smoking,
Mm-hmm.
wear a CPAP, which is a continuous positive airway pressure. It's a little machine. It has a long tube, looks like an elephant trunk kind of, and you put a mask on your face. There's one for just your nose. There's one that goes over both, and it keeps your airway open. It pushes like the air in, so it keeps your airway open.
So my cousin down in North Carolina, we went to visit them, and he's telling the story. He's funny on a good day, but he's telling me, he's like, so I thought I had sleep apnea. Like, I figured I'd try my mother's CPAP.
Oh God.
He puts it on his face, and it's like, Mom, I can't breathe, because it's shooting the air in his face. He's like, he's trying to breathe. I couldn't breathe because I'm laughing so hard. He's like, this, too much for me. I'm like, A, it's not meant to be while you're awake, you dumbass.
Oh my God. Yeah. So there's CPAP, and it literally pushes the air into your throat. There's an oral device that moves your jaw forward to open your airway, and you can get that through a dentist. I think Mike tried that at one point. He tried everything under the sun.
You would need like a real jaw thrust to
Yeah.
get my husband to stop snoring.
Surgery you can have, which includes removing excess tissue in the back of your throat, your adenoids, your tonsils, your uvula, that little thing that hangs
Everything
down.
that's in the back of your throat.
Yeah. I've done those at other hospitals that I worked at.
It's disgusting.
It was disgusting. It was awful. It
And
was
I
a
just,
bloody
you know
mess.
what? I can't imagine that's a good option. Because now, like, those things do stuff.
Yeah, they do.
There's
I
a
guess if you're
purpose for
not
them.
breathing and hurting your
True,
heart,
but
then
I
it's
mean,
better,
Jesus.
But yeah, you don't wear the CPAP.
Yeah.
You can have radio frequency ablation of the excess tissue, so they go in with like a laser and
Get rid of it.
that tissue, and you can have jaw repositioning surgery.
Yeah, that seems extreme.
That's very extreme.
Just get a CPAP.
Yeah, so wear your CPAP. Go to your doctor. You're going to go to the doctor. You're going to tell them, I'm exhausted all the time. My wife says I snore. You know, blah, 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 blah.
I'm not getting any
They're
sleep.
going to check everything out first. Then they're going to send you to the sleep lab.
Oh, yes.
You're going to have to stay at the sleep lab overnight. They're going to hook you up to every monitor known to man. And then when you wake up in the morning, they're going to tell you, oh, yeah, you slept for 8 hours, but you woke up 455 times. Or whatever ridiculous amount of time. Do you remember how many times you woke up?
That's crazy, though.
It was
That's
a
a
lot.
crazy amount.
It's like, oh my God. I'm like, I know. Like, I was, he was like so
30
surprised.
You said 30 before. That seemed low.
30
An hour.
An hour.
That seemed low.
I thought that too.
30
actually.
times 8 is 240 times.
Yeah, I do feel, when I was reading 30 an hour, I was like, I feel like it can be more.
But that's a lot to me.
It's a 10. But he was so shocked. They said, I'm like, You kidding me? I know. But anyway, then they're going to tell you what to do, what's best for you, lose weight, exercise. That just helps you in general. Change your diet, helps you in general.
Because, as you get older, you need all that.
Although, fit people can have it.
Fit people can have it.
Well, that's when they have to get that. They have a very big uvula.
Yes, huge uvula.
Yeah, huge uvula.
Yeah, so just get treated for it because it does hurt. It's not just being tired; it affects you. So this guy's the president and making decisions based on maybe an hour of interrupted sleep.
Right. My mother went to high school with the one whose son died from sleep apnea, the chronic brain damage he got from it. Yeah. He died from it.
Right.
Okay, so we're moving on to John F. Kennedy, and no, we're not talking about his assassination.
No.
All right. So my husband had read a book on him before. He was really interested. It was like a behind the scenes kind of, a lot more comes out about the Kennedys now, about what they were up to and what they were doing. But one of the things, Kennedy was always in the pool, they would say. And it was for exercise and stuff because Kennedy had a lot going on. All right. John F. Kennedy suffered from Addison's disease. He actually suffered from something else that Addison's disease is part of. He had two things, and Addison's disease was half of it. So I got it from JFK's pain story, from autoimmune disease to centralized pain. All right, so he is the 35th president of the United States. Mm-hmm. He is born May 29th, 1917, at the end of World War I.
I can't believe that.
Because you just don't see him, you see him as the 60s. He was young, and, that's probably the only bright side of dying young is you're always young. Yeah. So, he was known to suffer immense back pain. The immense back pain was thought to originate from the injury he received during the war. And a look back reveals he was a sick person from birth. Mm-hmm. So, and I mean, I kind of go back and forth because I started with one article and then the other article really went into his childhood. So, I'm kind of all over the place. So, just bear with me. Right. So, from the 9th to 12th grade, Kennedy attended a boarding school called Choate. He was plagued by chronic health problems while he was there. Mm-hmm. A doctor at the Mayo Clinic thought it was leukemia, but settled on colitis. So they think he has colitis. Mm-hmm. 1935, he goes abroad to London, but he has to come home because he's in poor health. Mm-hmm. 1940, he wants to go into the Army as an Army officer candidate. The Army won't even touch him because he's so sick. Mm-hmm. The school, but he's disqualified because he has lower back issues. Now, as you read through these articles, you realize these lower back issues were his entire life. So these chronic health problems he had were all related to his spine. Mm-hmm. 1940, so he wants to go in the military, and the Army's like, we're not going to touch you. His father pulls strings, gets him in the Navy. Mm-hmm. So he goes off to World War II. And in 1943, he's on these PT boats. They're small... They're smaller boats. They're not like a battleship boat. They're small boats. They're like river patrol boats. Yeah. But I think he was in the ocean. But it's not meant for the middle of the ocean kind of a boat because it's not that big. And he suffers, the boat's rammed. He suffers a back injury. There's a whole story, the coconut on his desk that he got on the island. They had to swim to this island. It was like a 3-mile swim. He saves his troops, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. He is hospitalized for about 6 months. Oof. At Chelsea Naval Hospital in Chelsea, Massachusetts. When he was a senator, he undergoes several spinal operations and was even given last rites at one point. He was often absent from the Senate due to his quote-unquote illness. During his presidency years, he suffers from high fevers, stomach pains, colon and prostate issues, abscesses, high cholesterol, and adrenal problems. It isn't until years after his death that it is discovered that in September of 1947, when he's about 30, he had gone and had seen this Daniel Davis in London. And he diagnosed Kennedy with Addison's disease at that time. Oh. But no, they don't say anything. Right. And in 1966, he has this Dr. Travell, who also said he didn't only have Addison's, he has hypothyroidism. So I'm going to go through Addison's disease. But what he actually has, because he had hypothyroid issues and Addison's together, is a disease called Schmidt's syndrome. But I'm not talking about Schmidt's syndrome. I'm talking a half of Schmidt's syndrome. I'm talking about Addison's disease because I just want to talk about Schmidt's syndrome. All right, so shut up. Why don't you just shut up? Get in Addison's and you're going to fucking like it. All right. Addison's disease. It is a disorder of the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are these little cone, they look like little Hershey kisses on top of your kidneys.
Kiss.
Yeah. They don't when you have Addison's, it's not producing enough hormones, cortisol and aldosterone. These are chemicals that control the function of tissues and organs. Mm-hmm. Cortisol helps the body respond to stress, including the stress of illness, injury, or surgery. So if you're not getting enough of it, you're going to be sick. Mm-hmm. It also helps maintain blood pressure, heart function, in the immune system, and your blood sugar levels. Addison's disease is also called primary adrenal insufficiency. It's a related disorder. A related disorder is secondary adrenal insufficiency, and it occurs when the pituitary, a small gland at the base of the brain, does not secrete enough ACTH. It's adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, which activates the adrenal glands to produce cortisol. So it is caused by so what is Addison's disease? It is caused by an autoimmune response, which occurs when the body's immune system, which protects it from infection, assaults its own organs and tissues. Mm-hmm. So with Addison's disease, the immune system is attacking the outer portion of the adrenal glands where cortisol and aldosterone are made. All right, so you're kind of really having a big problem here. What are the symptoms and causes of Addison's disease? So causes can be an injury to the adrenal gland, an infection including TB, HIV, or AIDS-related infections, and fungal infections. Cancer cells from another part of the body that have invaded the adrenal glands, bleeding into the adrenal glands, surgical removal of the adrenal glands, amyloidosis, abnormal buildup of certain proteins in the organs, or genetic defects. What are the symptoms of Addison's disease? Abdominal pain, abnormal menstrual periods, craving for salty foods. I could eat fries from McDonald's all the time. His son ordered a pizza. I'm like,
I know.
How can I get up there? All right. Dehydration, depression, diarrhea, irritability. Oh, God, I've got a lot of these. Lightheadedness or dizziness when standing up. Loss of appetite. Low blood sugar. Low blood pressure. Muscle weakness. Nausea. Patches of dark skin, especially around scars, skin folds, and joints. I think this is like a classic Addison's disease thing. You see that dark skin. Yeah. Sensitivity to cold. Unexplained weight loss, which if you look at pictures of Kennedy in the war, he's anorexic. Yeah. He's anorexic. Vomiting, worsening fatigue. In fact, he's anorexic even during his presidency. In some cases, such as injury, illness, or time of intense stress, symptoms can come on quickly and cause a serious event called Addisonian crisis or acute adrenal insufficiency. An Addisonian crisis is a medical emergency. If it is not treated, it will lead to shock and death. Oof. Addison's ain't no joke, huh? No. Symptoms of an Addisonian crisis are feeling restless, confused, or afraid, or other mental changes. Shit, I've been like this for about 3 days. Dehydration, extreme weakness, having trouble staying awake, or a total loss of consciousness. High fever, lightheadedness or feeling faint, paleness, severe vomiting and diarrhea, and sudden deep pain in the lower back, belly, or legs.
So he had this a bunch of times.
All the time. So I don't have the cure for Addison's. I don't think there is a cure. You have to take steroids to deal with Addison's disease, which when you're on prolonged steroid use, that creates its own problems. So doctors speculated that JFK had Schmidt syndrome, which is a combination of Addison's disease and the autoimmune hypothyroid. They backed this up with him being sickly from birth. By age 15, he had pain in all of his joints. By age 21, he starts his back problems. I mean, so they thought that back problem was because of the accident. He had spinal stenosis, and it had started in his teens. Yeah. So he was, his father's influence is the only reason he was allowed into the Navy, because he was so sick. He eventually discovered he had degenerative spinal disease, and during his back surgeries discovered he also had osteoporosis. I mean, he died at 43 or something, and he had osteoporosis. Right. It isn't until he meets up with this doctor, it's a female, Dr. Travell, that he can get the symptoms and pains under control. He was on opioids, muscle relaxants, sedatives, stimulants, testosterone, procaine, vitamins, thyroid replacement, cortisone, and they would put him in rocking chairs because it would help, and he was swimming all the time to try to help. Even though they said the 3-mile swim from that accident to the island exacerbated his pain issues, which is why he then was in the hospital for 6 months.
Well, plus, it said, like, you go into that storm when you have a trauma.
Right.
And high stress, so that's just going to put him...
Right,
that whole
Cuban Missile Crisis. Yep. Hello. Okay, so some speculate that his issues led to his demise. Why? I'll tell you why.
Okay.
He was in a chronic back brace. Nobody even knew he was wearing a back brace all the time. So the day he's shot, he's wearing his back brace, which is going to keep him sitting
So he
upright.
can't lean over.
So when he's shot through the neck, he doesn't lean over, and they are speculating that that's why the second shot was able to find its spot, because the back brace was keeping him right in view of Lee Harvey. I thought that was a very interesting fact about that. So that is John F. Kennedy and his Addison's disease. And that's all I'm going to say about that. That's all I got to say about that.
He's a very sick guy.
Like, but what amazes me, and it shouldn't, because I'm not that naive, back in the day, before now, all this was kept from the public. Nobody wanted you to know your president was weak. Nobody wanted you to know he had all these issues. So you couldn't even see them smoking. Both he and Jackie smoked. Yeah. And you never saw pictures of them smoking. They didn't even show you pictures of Barack Obama smoking. He was a heavy smoker. You know, so it's interesting the image they put out and how they didn't want the American people to know and blah, 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 blah. And then on top of all the other things you found out about the Kennedys, there's a lot they weren't telling people, you know. It's crazy. Okay, who do you have next?
I have Ronald Reagan.
Oh, Ronald Reagan. He's such a cute.
Ronald Reagan was born on February 6th, 1911. He was the 40th president of the United States.
1911.
Yeah. He's only 6 years. He's 6 years older than Kennedy.
Wow!
Isn't that weird?
When you think of that, because he seems so old.
I know.
Wow.
It's like bizarre, because like you said, Kennedy died in his,
wow.
I was like, oh
wow,
my God.
wow,
Yeah.
wowza, wow.
So he was the 40th president of the United States from 1981 to 1989. And before he was president, he was the 33rd governor of California from 1967 to 1975. And before that,
he was an actor.
He was a Hollywood actor.
He was a cutie pie. Little cute pie.
He died on June 5th, 2004. And he was also a Republican.
Would you just want to shit on the Republicans, Lauren?
Yes, I'm just talking about
I want to talk all the fat-ass Republicans.
But Ronald Reagan, poor Ronald Reagan, suffered from Alzheimer's disease.
Yes. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah. I got this from Alzheimer's Association.
.org.
Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia, which is a general term for memory loss and other cognitive abilities serious enough to interfere with daily life. Alzheimer's accounts for 60 to 80% of dementia cases. Oof. Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging. Not normal. The greatest risk factor is increasing age. Yeah. Most people with Alzheimer's are over 65, but about 20,000 Americans have early onset Alzheimer's and are under the age of 65, which is just a nightmare.
I had a cousin die 51 or 2
of
from
Alzheimer's.
Severe.
Alzheimer's is a progressive disease. In early stages, memory loss is mild, but late stage, people can't carry conversations. They can't respond to their environment.
It's so sad.
It is. My grandmother, my nanny, had Alzheimer's. 3 of her sisters had Alzheimer's. Oh. It's awful. It's just a
horrible
awful.
way. They get to the point they don't even know, but to watch somebody you loved that was so vibrant.
Yeah. And just not there anymore.
It's a horrible disease.
It is the 6th leading cause of death in the U.S. A person diagnosed lives on average 4 to 8 years after diagnosis, but can live up to 20 years.
He lived a long time with it.
My grandmother lived 10 to 12 years, I think.
Yeah. It's a long time.
Yeah. 10 warning signs. Maybe 10 years. 10 warning signs. 1. Memory loss that disrupts daily life, like forgetting events, repeating yourself. My grandmother would pick us up on every first Friday because we had a half day on every first Friday. My mother was a teacher. And my mother said, I should have realized it because she would call and go, what time am I getting the girls tomorrow? Noon. Oh, yeah. Am I getting the girls at noon tomorrow? So it affected her. This was something routine that she did all the time. And it was just things you can't forget what you forget what you're supposed to do and stuff. You tell the same story over and over and over again. Challenges in planning or solving problems. You can't pay your bills. You can't cook recipes you've done for a million years. You can't recall the steps to do it. Difficulty completing tasks that are familiar. You can't drive places that you've driven to.
You get lost while you're driving.
Yep. Shopping. You can't figure out, what do I need? Why am I here? Cooking. Using the phone. My grandmother also had, she knew our number, 322-4294. And then she would.
In case you wanted to call.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's connected anymore. And then like all this, then she would say like, she would call my mother and be like, I'm trying to call Mary. Like one of her sisters, I don't know her number. And she's like, yeah, you do. Like,
right.
You call her every day, you know, and then she would have to have a list and then she couldn't do the list, you know.
Oh.
Confusion with time or place. Trouble understanding an event that is happening later. Like, we're going to a wedding shower. What are we going to, like, next month? What are we going to again? Are we doing something next month? What's going on? What is it for? Like, you can't get the concept of it. You lose track of dates. Trouble understanding visual images in spatial relations. They have difficulty with balancing. They have difficulty judging distances. They trip. They spill. They drop things. New problems with words or speaking. You will never know this in me because I have problems with that now. They struggle with word finding.
You're going to report both of us.
My hottest part of my life is word finding. I swear to God. It's hard for them to follow a conversation. They kind of just stand there. Like if you see someone with Alzheimer's, like in the beginning, when they're still in a group or whatever, everyone will be talking and they're kind of just there because they cannot follow it and they don't know how to join in. Misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace your steps. So you put your keys in the fridge. You put your milk in the cabinet. You know, like you're putting things in the wrong place, but then you can't think, okay, where was I when I had my keys? They can't go back and retrace it. Decreased or poor judgment. They're victims of scams a lot. They don't manage money well. They pay less attention to hygiene. They have trouble taking care of pets. Like I remember my grandma, like, you know, she wouldn't, I mean, I could tell you her ritual with the Pond's cream and like every night that she always had. And, you know, then she wouldn't shower. You know, she wouldn't brush
Pond's
her
cream
teeth,
on the cat.
she wouldn't, you know, like it just wasn't, my grandmother would never have a cat.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that family would never have. All right, she put Pond's cream on the Chihuahua.
Yeah. Withdrawal from work or social activities. They're not able to keep up with what's happening around them. They don't go to church. They don't go to their card game or whatever they're doing because they can't
remember.
Well, even if they can't remember when they're there, they're like, I don't know
what I'm supposed to be doing.
Or they feel awkward or there's something missing. Changes in mood, personality. They become afraid. They become suspicious. They get really easily upset. My poor grandfather. Oh my God. My grandmother, God love her. She was never like this. And I remember, you know, we'd be there watching her with him, you know, and he would, I know you're seeing some girl and blah, 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 blah. Like, he's like, what? I'm on the couch. Like he wasn't. Like, he was the nicest guy. He would never do that. But he just, like, she was just all of a sudden very suspicious. And then she'd get so mad. And they would get my other aunt, Tina, we would go visit her with my grandmother before my grandmother had it. Tina was the oldest. And we'd go to her house, and I would be so afraid of her. And you felt awful because you were never afraid of her. Right. And then you'd be so afraid because she just hit my grandmother or she'd hit you. Like, it's not her. She would never do that. But they just get very easily upset. And my grandmother would do it to my mother sometimes. Like, not hot, you know, but they're just so upset. Stage 1 is of Alzheimer's is normal outward behavior. No symptoms you can spot. The only time you would know that they had this stage 1 is on a PET scan because it can show the changes in the brain of Alzheimer's. Stage 2 is very mild changes. They can still function. They can still go to work. They're a little forgetful, little changes in personality. Stage 3, there's a mild decline. People start noticing changes. They forget something that they just read. They ask the same question over and over. They have more and more trouble making plans or organizing themselves. They can't remember names of new people they've met. They know everybody. I can't remember
names of new people now. I always look at them like, you know why? Because I don't listen when you tell me. Just know that about. I'm a poor listener. I'm a skimmer.
Yeah. They know the people they've always known, but if someone new is introduced, they're not going to remember them. Their names. They need help paying the bills. They need help making appointments. They may need to retire from work at this point. Okay. Because they're not
functioning anymore.
But they can't organize themselves. They can't do
executive function is gone.
Stage 4 is moderate decline. They forget things about themselves. You know, they forget what they did. They forget that they went on this trip. They forget, you know, things about themselves that you should know. They have trouble putting the right date or the amount on checks. They can't get that from their mind to the paper. They forget the season or the month that they're in. They have trouble cooking or ordering from a menu. You're at a restaurant, they can't read that, digest it, and then tell you what they want.
Right.
They need help then with everyday chores, and they should not be allowed to drive at this stage. Stage 5 is moderately severe decline. They lose track of where they are. They lose track of time. They have trouble remembering their address. They have trouble remembering phone numbers. They're confused on how to dress. My grandmother, and this says, they like, she would put on like her pants and then her underwear would be on top. And her shirt and the bra. And
I don't mean to laugh, but you know you would be like...
You walk in, you'd be like,
what the hell are you doing?
Like, you know. But this was, you already knew this point. It was bad. So, but like it's literally like they can't remember what goes on. She'd have 14 shirts on. Like she'd have a million shirts on. So to help them lay out their clothes for them. This is what you're wearing today. And do it or like put the underwear and bra on top. So they put that on for, you know, like lay everything out for them. Repeat answers to your questions with an even, reassuring tone. It's very hard when someone asks you the same question 855
I'm living with it right
times a day.
now. I am living with it right now, and it's so hard.
It's not their fault. They have no idea, and they're just going to get scared when you get aggravated.
Yeah.
But it is aggravating.
It's easier said than done
obviously.
when you've been asked 15 times, how many cups of coffee can I drink?
Yeah. Okay. Stage 6 is severe decline. They can recognize faces. They don't know names. They mistake people for others, like son as husband. Mm-hmm. My grandmother did this to my uncle, her youngest son. She didn't think it was her husband, but she thought he was just some good-looking guy. And she was at we were at her pool, and we were all there, and she was flirting with him. My poor uncle wanted to die. Yeah. Because, you know, but you can't tell her. I mean, she didn't know. Like, she literally didn't know it was her son. Oh my God, was she flirting with him. Now I know where I get it from.
Let's just hope it's not with your son.
No, hopefully not. Oh, my poor, he was so embarrassed. It was like, he felt so awful, but like, what can you do? They have delusions. They may need help toileting. It may be hard to talk but they may be hard to like talk to. You can't really have a conversation anymore, but you can play music for them. You can read to them. You can show them pictures. They do get that. And the music, especially, like it makes them, they're like, oh, yeah. And they remember the music for some reason. Stage 7, very severe decline. Skills for eating, walking, sitting, they up and fade away. They need help to drink. You need to give them soft foods, you know, usually
because they're gonna choke and stuff.
Yeah. Oh my God. By this point, they're in she was in a nursing, because she was leaving. She would leave the house in underwear, like it was awful. So she was in a nursing home. She had no idea she was ever in a nursing home. She walked in and walked down the hall. Literally didn't know she was being brought there or anything. But she always had the I keep on, the food that's pureed. Yeah. Oh my God. You'd open the tray and you'd be like, oh, it was like meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Meatloaf was just a mound of brown food, and it was like a mounds of
nasty pureed food.
Oh God. And you'd put the spoon in front of her mouth, suck it right up. She sucked every last bit up till the day she died.
Oh my God.
Never didn't eat.
That would be me.
Also where I get that from.
That would be me, without a doubt.
I will eat till
You're going to have a bag of fries just to get me to go to the bathroom.
Oh my God.
Okay.
She ate up. She wouldn't even, at the end, for years, her eyes wouldn't even be open. You'd put a spoon there, suck it right up.
Yep, that will be me.
She always ate. They don't know they're thirsty or hungry then. They don't have a concept of hunger or thirst, so you have to always provide them with food and drink, or they will die of dehydration and starvation. Complications of the decline in brain function leads to death. That's what leads to their death. Alzheimer's is always fatal. You do not survive Alzheimer's. There is no cure for Alzheimer's. Current treatment does not stop the progression of Alzheimer's.
Just slows it down.
It slows the worsening of symptoms. You can take Aricept, Exelon, Razidine, and Namenda. Those are all pills that you can take for it. Researchers do not know exactly what causes Alzheimer's. They do know the brain of an Alzheimer patient has changes. They have fewer healthy cells, and it gets smaller over time. The brain cells usually show two flaws. One is neurofibrillary tangles. So there's twisted fibers inside the brain cells that keep nutrients and other important things from one part of the cell to another. And the second flaw is beta amyloid plaque, which is sticky clumps of protein that build up between brain cells instead of breaking down like they do in healthy brains. Mm-hmm. So you have all this plaque building up. It kills the tissue around it, and that's why the brain is shrinking. You can't do anything if your brain is shrinking.
No.
Plaques and tangles damage the brain cells around them. Those cells then die, like I just said, and the brain shrinks. They also make lower levels of chemicals called neurotransmitters that nerves use to communicate. So that's why, like, when they're looking at a menu, they can read it, but then they can't
function to
say,
process it.
I want this, and that's how I'm going to tell you that's what I want. They can't do that. Scientists don't know if the changes in the brain cells cause Alzheimer's or happen because of it.
Okay.
So either you could have these changes and that's why you're having these, or whatever this disease is making these changes. Right. They don't know. Risk factors for Alzheimer's. If you're female, you're at higher risk. If you're over 65, you're at risk. You're at risk. If you have a family history of Alzheimer's, you're at higher risk. Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome get it in their 30s or 40s.
As if they don't have enough going on.
We have a cousin, Jackie, and she has Down syndrome, and she has Alzheimer's now. Head injuries and hypertension and high cholesterol are also risk factors. Alzheimer's cannot be definitely diagnosed until after death. So they use tests to rule out other conditions that might cause the symptoms that you're coming in with. Mm-hmm. Because the only way they can say you had Alzheimer's is by doing a postmortem.
Right.
They will tell, so if you go in with, I have these symptoms, it looks like Alzheimer's. They'll take a health history. They ask about your symptoms, medical conditions, medications, personal history, mental state, and family history. They will do a mini mental state exam. They check your problem-solving skills, your attention span, your counting skills, memory. They can do a CAT scan, which can show brain changes common in later stages of Alzheimer's. But again, in the early stages, it's not going to pick up much. They may do an MRI to rule out tumors or strokes that could also give you the symptoms. A PET scan can show plaques that are linked to Alzheimer's. And neuropsychological testing studies the relationship between the brain and behavior. So they'll do some tests like that to see what's going on. For treatment, they use music therapy, art therapy, massage, pet therapy, previous hobbies to help spark memories. And those things all make them calmer. It makes them feel more stable. It makes them sleep better. Familiar. There's really nothing you can do except just try to
keep them calm.
Keep as calm as you can. And families obviously need a ton of support.
Oh, it's hard.
When there's a member in the family with Alzheimer's.
I mean, I can't imagine walking in the room and my mother has no idea who I am.
Not a clue.
I think that would be terrible.
It's awful.
I would think that would be terrible. And I think they've theorized that Reagan may have had Alzheimer's in his second term. Yeah. And that Nancy was running the show back in the day. Mm-hmm.
So, we'll never know.
We'll never know, but that's the theory going around.
Yeah.
So we're going to do some honorable mentions with the presidents. Mm-hmm. But before we do honorable mentions, we have to talk about smallpox, because it seems every fucker had smallpox.
Literally that whole list
like
was
the first half, they had smallpox.
Yep.
So let's just talk about smallpox real quick. I don't know if we've covered it before, in case we haven't. Smallpox.
I feel like we have, but go ahead.
I feel like we have, but then I started reading, I'm like, I don't think we did. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's caused by variola virus, so it's very similar to chickenpox. Mm-hmm. It is very contagious. Mm-hmm. 3 out of every 10 people who get smallpox will die, and it can leave you scarred or blind. Mm-hmm. Symptoms: you have a very high fever, head and body aches, and sometimes vomiting. Your rash can start on the tongue and mouth. These spots become sores that break open and spread large amounts of the virus into the mouth and throat. Smallpox sounds like a joy.
No, I don't think we did cover this.
Yeah, I don't think that's why I was like, no, we didn't cover this one. The rash will appear on face and body and eventually will uncover your entire body within 24 hours.
Jeez.
This rash will last about 10 days. I'm not done.
Okay.
When sores become pustules...
I was going to say, I know the word pustules is coming.
Then they will scan... Pustules.
I hate that word.
Pustules. But when the pustules rupture... And that's what's like... Ugh.
Everything's just leaking everywhere.
Smallpox is nasty. So by the end of the second week, most of your sores are scabbed over.
Oh my God.
The scabs will begin to fall off, and by about the third week, they're all gone. And you are contagious the entire time.
Wow.
Yes, until you are scab-free, you are contagious.
Wow.
So now that we've heard about smallpox,
Well,
let's
no
hear
wonder
about...
why so many presidents.
Okay, we've got George Washington, first president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
He witnessed more epidemics of infectious disease than any other president. So much so that PBS's NewsHour published a blog post entitled "The 9 Deadly Diseases That Plagued George Washington."
Oh, God.
So, in 1751, at 19 years old, he went to visit his half-brother who was sick with TB in Barbados. While he was visiting him, he gets smallpox.
Oh.
He fully recovered with just a few scars. Unfortunately, his tuberculosis. That's how I described it. Not like your brother with TB. Tubercular half-brother could not overcome his disease, and he died in 1752. 1793, he gets hit with yellow fever in Philly. And is what now is regarded as one of the most notorious epidemics of this disease in history. That's going to be an episode.
Uh-huh.
Washington had to flee along with much of the city's population to remain out of reach of the mosquitoes that spread yellow fever.
Mm.
He is also thought to be a victim of diphtheria at 15, malaria at 17. Stay away from the swamp, pal.
Wait, why is he in this many swamps? Where is he going?
Well, I mean, he was going to save the world. He did do a lot of shit. I think he was a soldier at 10.
Yeah.
Okay. So he also had dysentery or bloody diarrhea.
Ugh.
He's fake teeth, tuberculosis. Like, he's nasty. He's nasty.
All his pustules just dripping everywhere.
Bloody stool at the... So he gets his dysentery while serving in the French and Indian War and other battles.
Mm-hmm.
He is also thought to have suffered from quinsy, also known as tonsillitis.
Oh.
Carbuncle, a large potentially... This guy's fucking gross. I'm sorry.
Gross.
He had a carbuncle, which is a large, potentially cancerous bump on his face.
Yeah.
It's like a big...
It's like...
barnacle, and it's a carbuncle.
Yeah.
If it's on a human, it's a carbuncle. Epiglottitis, a throat infection that can be caused by the H. influenza bacteria, and pneumonia.
Mm.
Washington's death may have been partly the result of epiglottitis following cold. He died at the age of 67. I can't believe he lived to fucking 67.
Yeah, with all that
with
shit?
carbuncles,
That was a
bloody
long
stool.
time. Yeah.
After having endured his fair share of diseases, they actually believe he had been bloodletted so much at the end of his life that he died from anemia.
Well, that's the only thing to solve everything.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We have John Adams. Well, let's start with his Adams's wife, Abigail. I love that her name was Abigail. She got typhoid fever in 1818, which led to her death on the 28th of that month. So I should have told you she got it in October of 1818. She dies on the 28th of October from typhoid. I never knew that.
No.
Adams underwent a smallpox vaccination, and he described this process and results this way. Maybe this will pertain to us getting the COVID vaccine.
Maybe.
Okay. In the winter of 1764, the smallpox, like my aunt calls it, the COVID, the smallpox prevailing in Boston, I went with my brother, hello, mother. God, that revered just came out. Brother, three brothers. Okay. I went with my brother into town and was inoculated under the direction of Dr. Nathaniel Perkins and Dr. Joseph Warren, who happens to be a descendant of mine. Did you know that?
Well, you're a descendant of his.
I'm a descendant of his.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm from the Oklahoma branch.
Yeah.
This distemper was very terrible, even by inoculation at that time.
Oh.
My physician dreaded it and prepared me by a milk diet and a course of mercurial preparations.
What?
The shit he did. A milk diet. That's going to make it better.
Yeah.
Till they reduced me very low before they performed the operation.
What?
They continued to feed me with milk and mercury through the whole course of it, and salivated me to such a degree that every tooth in my head became so loose that I believe I could have pulled them all with my thumb and finger.
What the hell are they doing?
Oh, no, they were starving him to death. By such means, they conquered the smallpox. So we're gonna bring you to the brink of death when you could have just fucking laid in bed, thrown a couple of compresses on him, and kept him away from people. I mean, fucking George breezed through it.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
Which I had very lightly, but they rendered me incapable of speaking or eating in my old age. So they conquered smallpox, which he didn't have very bad, but it rendered him incapable of speaking and eating in old age because his teeth rotted out of his fucking head.
Because he had no teeth. Oh my God.
In short, they brought me into the same situation with my friend Washington, who attributed his misfortune of cracking of walnuts. I think I went off the grid here.
You did.
I am assuming the reason George Washington had false teeth is because they fucked around with him in the milk diet while he had smallpox, and he thinks it's because he was eating walnuts when he was 15. And what? You don't know how to crack the shell? You ate the walnut like whole? He was so hardcore. He's just popping walnuts and cherries. Jesus. Take it easy. Wow. These were presidents.
They
all right?
were.
These were presidents,
Those were men.
man. This is when men were men.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, Adams was the first president approached about the discovery of a vaccination in 1800. Benjamin Waterhouse, a strong advocate and frequent correspondent of Edward Jenner, wrote to President Adams about the new practice of using cowpox as a preventative for smallpox.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the milk.
Probably went a lot smoother.
Oh, God bless. Adams did not respond, and Waterhouse was forced to try again by contacting the more receptive vice president, Thomas Jefferson. Now we're on to Thomas Jefferson. Let's see what shit he had. 1806, following Waterhouse's correspondence about Jenner's innovation, Jefferson advocated for a smallpox vaccination in America. In fact, after learning about the discovery, Jefferson invited Native American tribal leaders. We're assholes. They invited the Native American tribal leaders in. Come on, let's give you the vaccine. To show them the practice using pictures and translating instructions. We probably inoculate, like they're doing to us in the hospitals. Here, you try it first. Let's see what happens. We're the Native Americans of 1801.
Oh my God.
Andrew Jackson, at age 14, he contracted smallpox.
Shocker.
While being held prisoner. He was 14 years old.
Held prisoner.
And he's being held prisoner during the War of Independence. This is when men were men, dude.
Yeah.
Jackson recovered and later became the 7th president of the United States. Though I don't think people like Jackson very much. I think he was a Trump of the 1800s. Mm. However, his brother Robert, who also contracted the disease while in prison, died. That's how you knew Jackson was something. Mm-hmm. Martin Van Buren. I don't think anybody even hears about him. Do we even remember he's a president?
I mean, I think he's one of those at trivia that I'm always like, I know there is somebody with a weird name.
That begins with an M. 1837 to 1841, he's president. 1807, Van Buren married his childhood sweetheart, Hannah Hose.
Oh, Hannah Hose.
She's a hoe. They had 4 sons, and Hannah became ill with tuberculosis and died in 1819. Her death was devastating to Van Buren, and he never remarried.
Oh,
I think Brian would be married tomorrow.
Yeah.
William Henry Harrison. Go Hamilton. 1841. Harrison was the first president to die in office. So one of the other articles said his inauguration speech is like the longest ever. It was like freezing cold out. He went on for like 3 hours. Well, he died of pneumonia a month after. So they think he should have shortened that speech.
Shut up, buddy.
Yep. Dumbass. Thanks. William Henry Harrison, fucker. He's probably a
month after?
30 days after he died, and they think pneumonia, and they think it was because of that wicked long inauguration speech. Okay. James K. Polk. I don't know, that name always sticks in my head. James Polk. Polk, I'm going to give you a poke in the eye. He served 1 term in office because he died of cholera 3 months after returning home to Tennessee in 1849.
Wow.
Yes. Zachary Taylor, cholera. That's another one, bloody stool kind of thing going on. Zachary Taylor. I love the name Zachary. Don't ask me why. Zachary Taylor was the 2nd president to die in office. While traveling in the summer of 1849, he came down with violent diarrhea and fever. He must have had the tuna fish in our cafeteria. Although he recovered, he came down with similar symptoms a year later on 4th of July.
Weird.
When he was diagnosed with having cholera morbus.
Oh.
Hence, morbus usually means death.
Yeah.
Or gastroenteritis. 4 days later, Taylor died following extensive diarrhea, vomiting, and that's a way to go.
I do not want to go die with diarrhea.
Shit my brains out.
No.
I don't. Abraham Lincoln. Not just a shot in the head. Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address in the afternoon of November 19th, 1863, and he began to feel weak and feverish just a few hours later. By the 4th day of his illness, it was clear that he had smallpox.
So, of course he did.
Even though I guess he didn't get the inoculation. He remained ill for about 4 weeks. He recovered, although his valet, William H. Johnson, who has his own website, was also contracted the disease and he died.
Oh.
Chester A. Arthur. He's another one. I don't know why he sticks in my head, too. Arthur's wife, Ellen, she died of pneumonia at age 42, a few years before Arthur was inaugurated as president. Benjamin.
He was the bachelor, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Benjamin Harrison, the president of the famed Gilded Age. Pneumonia, 1901. Oof. Done. Woodrow Wilson. What do you think Woodrow Wilson had in the year of 1918? We've talked about this.
I feel under pressure and I don't know.
He had the Spanish flu.
Oh, he did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And they believe that while he was in France, so it's at the end of it, because November 11th was the end of World War I. The flu that's wiping out the world disappears in October, but they think he had it. Mm-hmm. And they think he had it while he was helping to negotiate the Treaty of Versailles in the spring of 1919. Yeah. And that he was really not in his right mind when he did that. And they think that that treaty is direct result of why we have World War II. Mm-hmm. So he had the Spanish flu. Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge, Woodrow Wilson, I guess you have a cool name. Coolidge's son, Calvin Coolidge Jr., died of blood poisoning or septicemia, the result of an infected blister on his foot in 1924. That's kind of late to be dying of that.
Yeah, that's terrible.
He was just 16 years old.
Oh.
Dr. John Colmer, a fellow of the College of Physicians of Philadelphia, he attended to the boy and wrote an account of the event transcribed here on our blog. Oh. Let's see what the event is. Maybe they just skip it. I don't know. Let's see. Calvin Coolidge Jr. What do they have to... Oh, here we go. Nope. We've moved on to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Oh,
Jesus.
We all know.
Well, he died of a sore foot.
He died of a sore foot. You're going to have to go look at his own blog. Mm-hmm. So FDR, he falls ill with polio during his visit to his family's summer retreat in Canada in August of 1921. His legs remained paralyzed, and he had to use a wheelchair for the rest of his life. But you don't realize that because they would stand him up, pose him, and then they would take pictures.
He had those braces.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Roosevelt's personal experience with polio became one of the most important aspects of the effort to develop a vaccine. Mm-hmm. In 1938, Roosevelt became the icon of the March of Dimes, a grassroots fundraising effort where people all over the country sent dimes to the president. Like the president needs dimes.
It was for
Yeah, whatevs. Well, it was to help the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis. Mm-hmm. Over the year, the March of Dimes raised millions of dollars, and the fruit of their efforts was Jonas Salk's innovative poliovirus vaccine, tested in 1954 on 2 million children, or polio pioneers. Listen to our vaccine episode, and you will hear both about the Spanish flu and the polio epidemic, which was crazy. We've talked about Dwight D. Eisenhower, so we're going to skip Ike. Gerald Ford. Oh. A little-known president.
What did he have?
Often made fun of on SNL.
Yeah, a lot.
Ford's time, infectious disease like he was before his time, so he doesn't get smallpox or typhoid fever. He's in the age of vaccine when he met Maurice Hilleman and other scientists on March 3rd, 1976, to discuss a vaccine response to the swine flu, which was going around. He helped get Congress to commit funds to a nationwide vaccine program that had ignominious ends. I don't even know what ignominious means. I should. Okay. Jimmy Carter. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Carter. Carter's liver pills. Under Carter's presidency, the first comprehensive childhood vaccine program was launched in 1977. Betty Bumpers. What? Betty Bumpers? Henrietta Ho and Henrietta Bumpers. Yeah. Okay. Wife of the Arkansas then Governor Dale Bumpers contacted the administration advocating for improved immunization effort. Jimmy Carter's wife, Rosalind Carter, became involved and helped Mrs. Bumpers, just call her Barbara Bumpers or Betty Bumpers, to advocate for state laws requiring vaccination for school entry. See? She knew what she was talking about. Mm-hmm. In 1991, Mrs. Bumpers and Mrs. Carter started an immunization campaign called Every Child by Two, which works to ensure that all American children immunized against common diseases by the age of 2. We need to find out why they used to say we have as many things as Carter has liver pills. Why was that? I used to hear that all the time as a kid. I'm a little older, but I did hear it. Okay, so shut up. Barack Obama. He's frequently spoken of his daughter Sasha's bout with meningitis. When she was an infant, she survived, and today is a healthy young woman. So, as you can see, illnesses have plagued presidencies. I am stone.
You're really
cold,
having a problem.
But you know what it is? I have no sugar. I'm low blood sugar. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. It's been plaguing presidents since George Washington, who apparently was infected with everything, including carbuncles. Yeah. I can't even imagine. I'm going to Google it and put it on for this episode because I just want to know what the fucking carbuncle looks like.
When you said that, I was like, I think I can remember, like, in some of his portraits, he has something, like, over on his cheek.
Well, I would think if you're going to paint me, you'd not paint me.
I mean, it's not
carbuncle.
like a big, huge thing, but
yeah, but like, no, don't even put it on my face.
I don't know why.
You're painting me. I want to be like, it's like a Snapchat filter. I want to be gorgeous.
Oh, I need lots of filters.
I don't want any carbuncles on my painting. No. Come on, what the hell's wrong with you? Okay, I believe I have a write-in story as well, and you have one. Mine was kind of told to me, but I still think it was pretty fucking funny. And yours was actually written in.
Yes.
Do you have it?
Yes.
Okay, do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first?
I don't care. Whatever you want.
All right, I'll go first since I've already occupied the last half of the podcast.
Yes.
Okay, so I was at work, and I'm speaking to somebody we work with, and they're like, I have a really good story for you. I know you want me to write it in. And the reason I prefer writing in is because when I read it in your words, it's better. Because I'm just going to paraphrase and say shit the way I think it should be said. So I'd rather...
It might not be true to the story.
Right. I'd rather hear it the way you have to say it. But she's saying, so she was working in a different hospital. And she was very close with this particular surgeon. They were friends and they'd worked together for years. And she just loved him and blah, 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 blah. And he was having surgery. Mm-hmm. So she wanted to do something because he was a good friend. She's like, I'm going to go to the gift shop. I'm going to send him a card. So she goes to the gift shop. She gets the card. She's like, you know what? He loves to read. So I'm going to get him a book. Mm-hmm. So she asks the woman at the gift shop, what is the number one selling book? She goes, that one over there. So she's like, I grab the book, pay for it, get the card, sign the card, wrap it up, send it to the doctor. Uh-huh. She goes, that night I'm watching the news and they are talking about the number one selling book in America. And I think you can guess what book that would have been that she mailed to him. Because I guessed it immediately.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Number one selling book.
It has a necktie on the front.
50 Shades?
She mailed him 50 Shades of Grey! I looked at him like, please tell me you did not mail him 50 Shades of Grey. She goes, I mailed him 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh
she goes,
my God.
So she worked for a woman we currently work with now, who she went into her office and told her what happened. She goes, I don't know what to do. I don't want to offend him. Does he think I'm going to be like, I like him in that way?
I want you to tie me
up
and
an erotic book. And she's like, the woman, my boss was dying laughing, couldn't stop laughing. She said, eventually I had to call him. He was laughing. She's like, I didn't know. I didn't know what it was about. I just knew you like to read. I was like, you sent him 50 in the red room, and oh my God.
That's hysterical. Well, it kept him entertained.
Oh, I'll bet it did. I bet his wife liked that book better than he did.
I bet. Oh my God.
Oh my God. What you got?
That's a good one.
That's a good one. That was a good one. I love that one.
Don't buy doctors anything.
No, just send a card.
Yeah. This one's from Dawn. She said, hi there. I hope you have some time off for the holiday. Your podcast on hypothermia reminded me of a story my grandmother told me when I visited her in the nursing home about an old woman who was also a resident. She was from Sweden, and she used to ski in her bathing suit.
Well, that's what you do in Sweden, because you're not cold.
Probably not a bikini, but yes, she would ski in a bathing suit. She needed to use the bathroom one day, and since it was a local residence outhouse nearby, she used that one. When she shut the door and sat down, she looked up and saw a photograph pointed on the door of herself skiing down the mountain in her bathing suit. So she goes in the door, shuts the door, and boom, there's a picture of her in her bathing suit. And that was from Dawn.
Oh my God, that cracked me up. Hypothermia, that was our couple of episodes ago. We're talking about the Donna party and the children's blizzard. And I like that episode. But anyway.
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
Don't ski in a bathing suit. Hypothermia galore.
Yeah, you'd get really chafed nipples. That would be really uncomfortable.
Oh God, yeah. Don't do it.
So enjoy. It's going to get warmer soon. The days are getting longer.
It's getting brighter out.
I can't wait.
Yep.
I can't wait. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Like, subscribe, rate, and review the Scissors and Scrubs podcast on whatever podcast app you listen to us on. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Scissors and Scrubs. And email us any of your stories or thoughts to scissorsnscrubs@gmail.com.